welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am your host, Steve Harper, and with me, as always, the amazing and talented Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great and cannot wait to dive into this conversation, which will push everyone's buttons, mine included.
Ah,
So this should be good.
I don't know if I should be scared, but let's dive in. What's today's topic?
So, what is the lie you tell yourself most often?
I'm not sure I can reveal that, Donna. I mean, it gets real personal real quick. So provide some context. How did this come up, and why is this the burning question on your mind this morning?
I was talking to a client and we were percolating on, trying some stuff. I love doing that with clients.
Yeah,
It's not just coaching them on what they've done and what they've reported out. It's let's just try this. Let's play with this and see where it goes.
yeah,
If it's good, we'll continue. If it isn't, we'll throw it out and try something new, right? And in this case, it was helping my client free himself from the I have to do this in this order kind of mentality.
hmm,
So I said, what if you were able to do this? First response, I can't do this because the lie that we often tell ourselves, and I'm being kind starting with this example, is I can't because it's not in my job description.
mm-hmm,
I can't because I'm not good enough. How come you haven't spoken to a group of people because what you're living, what you're doing is so incredible? Who am I to do that? I'm nobody important. These are the lies that people tell themselves most often.
Wait, are you in my brain all the time now? That last one especially is really close to the one I would have immediately said. So,
And when I'm working with people, especially some of the fellowship programs I'm working with, they need to pack a punch because what they're doing, the
sure.
world hasn't seen yet,
Yeah.
right? And if they go in there with the mental attitude that they're not good enough, or who are they to get people to support them, or any of these lies that they tell themselves, well, what are you doing this work for in the first place if not to have an impact?
Yep.
The minute you say I'm not as good as somebody else, well, that individual isn't you either.
Right.
So if you tell yourself these lies, even subconsciously, it's going to hold you back.
Mm.
Some people think that they are cute in being self-deprecating when they go to speak at a conference or they're on a panel with esteemed colleagues and they minimize themselves. It doesn't mean that you have to say I'm the greatest thing, since sliced bread. And I said sliced bread because Ray's going to be listening. Normally I say 7 Up and he shakes his head, says nobody says that.
I'm going to say it now.
There you go. The whole point is when we tell ourselves lies for whatever reason, so that we don't sound boastful or we don't think we're better than we are, whatever the reason is, they are lies.
Mm-hmm.
And we are lying to ourselves, which hold us back.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you think that, because I have a tendency to do the self-deprecating thing a lot, not necessarily in front of an audience per se or on a panel, but in general. And I mean, you've beat me up over that a few times, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
it is, to a certain degree, it's a defense mechanism, right? Because of the nervousness or the fear that maybe I don't measure up in certain areas, or that I'm, not quite on the same level or same, playing field as someone I'm talking to, or a colleague I'm maybe visiting with, like now, right? So I had that lie when I first, you first approached me about this show. Like, could we do this together? I'm like, I don't really know. I don't know that I'm even anywhere close to your level of awesomeness, right? And you've got such a varied experience in so many different ways, and I started to question whether I belonged on screen with you, right? So I do think in some capacities it's a bit of a defense mechanism, and then sometimes people do it because they need other reassurances that what they're what they're putting out there in their words, somebody tells you, "Oh, you're crazy for even thinking that. Why would you think that?" And they try and get their self confidence kind of, like there's a term in racing called drafting, right? So you get more speed and momentum when you get in behind a car, you tuck in, and then you can shoot out. And sometimes I think, and I see this in my clients, a lot of times there's a lot of drafting being done, and at some junctures, that drafting isn't very endearing to people because they always feel like they have to build you up in order for you to feel good enough to perform, and that can be tough too.
It's really hard to emotionally and authentically support somebody who you think is floating on your coattails, so to
Yeah,
speak,
yeah,
or that has to be pumped up by you. There gets to be a point where that individual gets exhausted.
sure.
We go back to responsible two or four. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about
Yeah, we
that in the
did. Yep,
past.
yep.
The minute you allow somebody to do that, you end up being responsible for their outcome, their success, their failure, whatever. So if they're successful, they don't own their success.
Mm-hmm.
You do. So that's disempowering.
Yep,
If they fail, they have somebody to blame, and it's never their fault, and they don't take responsibility for the failure, which could be the best learning experience of their lives because they have used you as the energy source
yeah,
for getting there, and you've allowed it.
yep,
So there's so many different ways of looking at this and asking, what is the lie I'm telling myself right now?
yep.
What is the lie that seems to recur on a regular basis? And you brought up the conversation you had with yourself when I
Mm-hmm.
asked you to do this show, and I think let's talk about that in how we connected in the first place, because I think this topic is relevant in that conversation too. So stay tuned for that
Yeah,
one,
well,
because I think we're going to be doing that next.
yeah,
Or I'd like to do that one
yep,
next. Think about that in relationships. That was such a great example, Steve, because if you feel that you have to pump somebody up or constantly tell somebody, no, that's not true,
mm-hmm.
you are better than you think, that kind of conversation, it could deplete the energy that is possible
Yeah,
between two people.
yep, yep. Well, and what's kind of interesting in telling about that too, though, is if folks seek you out for your coaching, people seek me out for my coaching, and that's kind of the job description is to help people see it, but you also have to hold them accountable to not constantly come back to that well looking for that pump up. It's like, okay, let's stop that. Let's we've already been there, done that. We've already handled that. Let's move on. There are other elements of a coaching relationship where you're providing that level of support. But oftentimes, I think that, at least in my coaching client relationships, the ones that really understand it and they just need that one little bit of spark, that one little bit of reassurance that where they are, the path they're headed down, the direction that they want to go, or how they handled a situation would get approval from someone other than themselves. They did it, they handled it the way they thought they needed to, but in some capacity, there's that confidence factor. And that question that you formed, what lie am I telling myself right now, in those moments, even in our own coaching relationships, if we put that right forward in front of them, say, well, what happened previously and what is the lie you're telling yourself now with that same situation coming up or that next meeting, etc. Super valuable and important because either they didn't learn the lesson the first time or they needed to be reminded of the lesson that they learned and successfully implemented. So I think that there is so much value in that question. And from my own personal perspectives, and I recognize a lot of times that, confidence is not my strong suit in a lot of ways. And kind of like a doctor, you can tell people to eat well and, don't do these things because it's bad for your health. And then you're doing all those things on the weekends yourself, right? It's hard to follow our own advice oftentimes, but in the instance of my own self, I've had to really try and figure out that many of those lies are just my mind trying to play tricks on me to try and hold me back and to keep me in. And that's the ego, right? Trying to, tell you you're not good enough or you're, trying to protect you in some capacity. And you have to kind of break through that. And having an honest conversation about that with yourself, about what lies you're telling yourself, I think is very essential.
And those lies are also protective devices.
Yeah.
So you could make up all kinds of scenarios as to why you're not going to succeed at something. Think about that.
Yeah.
You know, um, we discussed this at the Harvard Institute of Coaching. The immunity to change. It was such a powerful conversation. What are you telling yourself that's stopping you from creating the change that you need? One of the people there was talking about being told by his doctor, speaking of doctors, that he had to lose weight because he had a heart condition, other health issues. He had to lose weight. And he started saying every reason in the book why it was going to be very hard for him, and what he was depriving himself of, not what he was working towards, that was a healthier lifestyle, but what he was depriving himself. So the lie that he was telling himself was that I'm going to be deprived. The other lie was, I am so busy. I'm always on a plane. I'm always doing this, always doing that. I don't have control over what I put in my mouth. Like all the lies, the caveats, the excuses that would stop him from creating the change necessary to improve his health and longevity, right? So the lies that we tell ourselves, if we just ask the question, what is the lie that I'm continuing to perpetuate, that I'm not good enough, that I can't do this because all of this, when push comes to shove, if circumstances force you to do something, of course you could do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's no more lie in the way. And I think showing our clients some of the lies that we tell ourselves also shows that we have a vulnerable side that's okay to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, and like you said, sometimes we have told ourselves these lies so often, it has become such a regular habit that oftentimes you need it pointed out that, look, do you recognize that you do this every single time this situation comes up? Do you realize that, this is, debilitating your ability to make progress? And when you actually can sort of see those eyes pop open and go, you're right, and as you start to think about that, and put it forward as the challenge to our audience to ask that question, you could think about it in every capacity. I can think about it in my friendships. I can think about it in my personal relationships with my family. I can think about it in my work and how I want to be perceived as a leader. There are, the ego has no shortage of the lies that will allow you to tell yourself. It's almost at the ready, fire, go, right? And
That's right.
the more that you can interpret and understand that you are actually allowing that to occur, and that these are the constant lies that continue to be repeated, it makes it much simpler and easier for you to start to say, well, wait a second. Okay, let's take a step back and let's see if that's really true. What's really the motivation behind that lie that I'm telling myself? Because there is something else going on. And, I need to figure out how to stop that.
Those lies are fear based.
Yes.
Think about it.
Yep. Always.
That's the
Yep.
shadow coaching that I do, right? Looking at the driving force behind how we make decisions. Um, I'm not good enough holds us back from really diving in and putting ourselves out there, in which case we protect ourselves from possibly failing,
Yeah.
falling on our face on stage, whatever it is. When we say that, we can't do this because all these circumstances are on the way to make it very difficult for me, not impossible. If you choose a healthy lifestyle, things will be available to you because you're going to make different choices. So, it's that protective thing. I might do it for 2 days and then I'll slip.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are going to look at me and you're doing it all over again and blame me for that slip, as opposed to encourage me to get back on track
Yeah.
because I know that I'm working towards something better,
Yep.
not
Yep.
depriving. So there's ways, but it's all fear based, right?
It
What
is.
if I fail? What if it doesn't work? What if I have a heart attack anyway? Like all the stories that you tell yourself in the back of your mind. So if you don't embark on it in the first place, or you step back, through a minimization kind of conversation, you're not going to take that risk.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Well, Donna, yet another a powerful, amazing question to put forward for our listeners and our audience. We are so grateful to have these, opportunities to have these conversations because we really want to shift perspectives. We want to shift mindsets, and I really encourage everybody that sees or hears this, whether it be on YouTube for the video or the podcast on our various platforms. Our podcast is being picked up by all different genres right now, which is fantastic. So, however you're arriving here, we are grateful for it. But I hope that you'll actually take today's topic and really put it to heart and put it to use in your own life and ask yourself, what lie
Yeah.
are you telling yourself? Because I think it's very powerful. Write those things down, look at them, examine them, see what the motivations are behind them, and I think you're going to be very, very surprised about what you learn through that journey. And let us know. Tell us what you're experiencing. Donna, we have a way for them to actually communicate with us on YouTube and leave a comment if they see that on the video. But how else can they do that? Through Facebook?
We have a Facebook page, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Look for that. Join the group and continue the conversation. That is the perfect platform for you to ask your own questions, continue the conversations of some of the sessions that we've had and the conversations that we've had, and we welcome them.
Absolutely. We are also seeing, conversations happening and starting to populate between members of the group, which is great. I've heard from one teacher who connected with another member that had joined, and they had this great dialogue offline off Facebook. Which is that's part of what we want to do. We want to get you out there, having these conversations because the intent of this show is to help make improvements in any capacity of your life, and so we hope to continue to see more of that. And of course, if you want to connect with Donna, definitely reach out to her at donnacarlin.com. You've got access to all of her social accounts, and she's extremely active on LinkedIn. I pretty much think they're going to make you like CEO of LinkedIn one day. I just have this feeling. And then your content out there is just second to none. And you can reach out to me at ripplecentral.com. All my social networks are accessible through there as well. So, Donna, another great conversation. Truly, truly appreciate the time. I can't wait for our next conversation.
Me too. You have a fabulous day.
You too. Take care.